Hi guys, welcome back. We are working today on a 1998 V70, so fairly old one, but the same process applies for, well, pretty much all modern vehicles to one degree or another. This might be the other way up or whatever, but bottom line, at the end of the steering rack there is always going to be an inner ball joint, and then there's going to be an outer tie rod with the ball joint that connects onto the steering knuckle. That's just kind of how things are. What we're going to need to do here to release this, there is a nut here that pinches tight and stops this thing twisting, stops that twisting, basically locks everything in place. So it's a pinch bolt. I'm only changing the outer tie rod today, so not worried about special tools or anything really. All we're going to need for this is, in this case, a 22mm spanner to grab that pinch nut. So I'm not expecting this to be on with any great force, but it is easier to do this whilst this is on. So there we go. Now that is now loose. I'm just going to put it finger tight back against, and I'm not going to move that because that tells us the position of this tie rod. Now once we've got this off here, that'll just literally wind off. New one winds on to roughly the same position, and then you need to get the tracking checked. But if you keep this pinch bolt in the right kind of place, then you can wind the replacement tie rod end onto it, and just basically you'll be close enough to aligned to drive to the tyre centre to get it checked properly. So that's one end. The other end, there is I think it's a 19 on these. I'll try a 19 first. And you might be able to break this free. Without it twisting. Sometimes you need to apply some force to the top. There is also a flat spot on the bottom underneath here. Let me just grab the camera, I'll freehand this one. There we go. So if you needed to use a ring spanner to turn this instead of an impact or a socket, if you haven't got one, then we can put vice grips or an adjustable spanner onto the bottom there to stop that shaft into the end of the ball joint there from spinning whilst we loosen off the retaining nut. Now, regulars to the channel will know my preference for attacking with everything we've got in the first instance. So I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to put some penetrating oil on, because of course this is exposed to constant salt spray. In order to do that, I'm going to put a wet rag over the top of the CV boot, because if we melt this rubber, we've got bigger problems to contend with. So this is just a standard rag. I'm going to be blasting in that direction anyway as best I can, but this just takes care of the CV boot, and I would strongly recommend that you do the same. Now, you don't have to do what I'm doing here. However, what I would say is that if you don't, you're making your life very difficult for the sake of it. So what we need to do basically before we can do anything else is get rid of the rust, get rid of the damage that the salt has done. The new end is going to come with a new bolt anyway, so that's not too much of a problem. I'm just going to use a little wire brush here just to get any loose surface rust off, and that will allow the penetrating oil to work its magic. Of course, we've got the wet rag on already. Give it a blast of heat. Doesn't matter about melting this rubber because it's already split. That is the problem in this case. Use the same rag just to catch the drips. Right, good spray of penetrating oil, and we'll let that work its magic. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can just break this loose, just with a normal tool before moving over to the impact driver, because I know a lot of people don't have impact drivers. There we go. This thing has seized completely solid. But it's when you loosen this nut off, you may find that it's actually not loosening the nut, it's just twisting the ball joint. That's what's happening in this case. Okay, so let me just grab a spanner. I'll show you how to use the little knob at the bottom. Okay, so with some vice grips of some description, clamp onto that section at the bottom. Of course, don't forget to put the spanner on first, and then we can hold that still whilst we wind the nut off. Okay, this is completely seized in place, so I'm just going to use a tuning fork spreader here to just drive this off. It does need a bit of force. If it doesn't want to play, we can give it some more heat, a bit more penetrating oil, but eventually that will come loose. Okay, this is well and truly stuck in place, so what I'm going to have to do is give it another blast of heat, really soak the top of that. It's a cone basically fitting into the top of the this arm on the knuckle, so I'm basically just going to heat it up, pull penetrating oil on the top of there, and then leave it for 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that, and then we'll see if it'll break loose after that. What I need is for the heat to draw by capillary action the oil down into that joint and try and break up some of the rust that's formed in there over the years. That bolt's now glowing cherry red. I don't know if you can see it from there, but as before, catch the drips. This is going to be smoky. And now we wait. I was going to wait 20 minutes, like I mentioned, but I just heard a pinking noise from this, kind of like a little metallic ping. So just give it a go. May have let go. Now, be extremely careful when doing this not to wallop the rotor. That would be a problem. There we go. And there it is. You can see the hole there that this was completely stuck into. A bit of corrosion on there, not as much as there would have been if I hadn't just squirted all that penetrating oil in. But anyway, we are now good to wind that off. Word of caution, by the way, be extremely careful when you're applying violence directly underneath the bolt, because if you accidentally break this arm off, goes into the back of the steering knuckle, you'll need to replace the knuckle, and unless you can find one in a breaker's yard, the dealerships will want to charge you about £700 for those these days. They are very, very expensive, so preserve this. I believe it's actually made of aluminium, which doubles the risk, but be really careful with that. This will come out eventually, just be patient. Take your time. And if it's not coming out straight away, don't just hit it harder, put more heat, more oil, and wait. Anyway, let's get this off. Okay, so everything's cooled down now. I'm just going to use a spanner here on top of this section in between the inner and outer tie rods, basically just to keep that in the same position. Notice I'm going to keep it vertical basically. That way, if this twists as I'm going, it's not going to twist the position of anything else. And as you can see, this really does just spin off. Now you can count the turns if you want to, it won't really help any. We've got that nut in exactly the same position it was in previously, so if I just wind the new part back up to that, assuming it's the same spacing from the thread to the pin, we should be absolutely fine. But that is all there is to removing a tie rod end, and it probably won't surprise you that the refitting is actually slightly easier because you haven't got to fight with it. But let's get the new part on now. Alright, making good progress. So we've got the old arm off, new one in the bag waiting. Let's just compare these. Don't be concerned, by the way, when it looks different when it comes out the bag, because there's a plastic cover over the actual ball joint itself, and it's as likely as not that the nut is going to be squished in the end if you're spending ages looking for it. They just kind of push out. So right, what have we got? I'm looking for the length here from the tip of the threaded section to the position where it goes through the knuckle, and it is, as far as I can see here, exactly the same. So go ahead and fit that. Now the later ones, or aftermarket as well, come with a locking nut, which is nice. And don't be concerned also that you can see more of this than you can on this one, because as you fit it, basically that'll squish down to keep a nice tight seal. But yeah, that's the gist of it. We just twist this back on again, making sure that the spanner stays vertical pretty much the whole time. That way we know we've not adjusted any other factors. Started. There we go. Okay, and when this basically reaches the pinch nut, which is there, we have arrived. So to get that back in place, we just drop it in the hole and whack it in. Before we do that, let's improve our chances of loosening this off next time. I'm going to use just a tiny bit of copper grease here. You may see some folks refer to this as never sees or whatever. You can see there's some grease on here already, and I'm just going to clean that off. That's grease that's leaked out of the joint, so it's not copper grease. That's going to be probably molybdenum, like the black grease that you'd put in a constant velocity joint. Okay, so clean all of the grease we didn't want there. Let's put a little of the grease that we do want. Most of this will get squished out the bottom anyway, but that's it. Lovely. Now, counterintuitively, I'm just going to push that down with the old one. Just I don't know if you saw the blob coming out the bottom there, because I don't want to get that blob on the threads of the new unit. So I'll just wipe the top, wipe the bottom, and that now is greased only in the sleeve. Alright, so we're going to need to refit this. Obviously it's the same deal as before. I think this is probably an 18 or a 19. It's a 19, so same putting back on as coming off, which is nice. Okay, so this is wound back on. I'm not going to nip it up just yet. I'll do that in a minute when it's all nice and tight. The reason for that being that when this is in here, it's going to hold it and stop it from spinning, so it'll be easier to tighten up that pinch nut. So I have the new locking nut. I've put a little bit of copper grease inside the receiving cone shaped hole there. Nut on the bottom. Now this is a 19 on this one. And okay, just going to whiz this on with an impact. If you haven't got one, again, remember to just clamp the bottom or use an adjustable spanner or whatever, and as you put it back on with the ring spanner just to stop it twisting. Doing it with an impact, this should fire on fast enough that when it spins against the knuckle here, it pinches tight and stops the shaft spinning anyway. So impact's definitely a useful job with this kind of joint. Lovely. So there you go, nasty old tie rod outer end removed. You can see here what the problem was. I mean, basically all of the grease that was in there has dried up, and the amount of movement on that, you shouldn't be able to actually move that by hand, but I mean, look at it, floppy as anything. So clonking, understeer, all sorts of problems as a result of that, but a nice easy fix. Really just one pinch bolt and one nut underneath. The tricky bit with this job is getting them separated, and as I said before, open with everything you've got. Don't kind of go halfway through the job, mash everything up and then realise that you've got problems. Cover off the rubber, heat it with your blowtorch, get the penetrating oil in there, and then use a tuning fork type spreader to separate the joint. If that doesn't work, more heat, more oil, try again. If that doesn't work, repeat until it does. It will give up eventually, they always do. I mean, it's a clean enough bit of metal, but that was glued into the receiving piece. Anyway, that'll do us for today. I'm going to get the wheel back on, go and get the alignment set up here, and on with the next job, which is an oil related one, so keep an eye out for that. If this is of interest to you, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click that bell notification. That way you'll be alerted to any new videos dropping. As always, thank you very much for watching. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.